Hello there, welcome and thank you for joining us for what promises to be another fantastic EDA Summit Series event. My name is Mark Jeffries and I'm delighted to return as your host. Today we will hear from Unilever's Sushil Sarda, who is the head of IT integration at Unilever. Sushil will share his experience building the marketplace, which, of course, leverages event-driven architecture. As always, please send us your questions throughout the presentation and we'll take them up at the end. Oh, and do stick around until the end because after Q&A, I'll be making some important announcements about upcoming events, including our next EDA Summit and a joint presentation with AWS and Solace on the topic of EDA across the hybrid cloud. But on now to today's event. Sushil, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please take it away.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. This is Sushil from Unilever. I head IT integration for distributed trade for Unilever. I'm based out of Bangalore, India. And in next few minutes, I will be talking about how we have built an online marketplace with event-driven architecture. So the agenda which I will be covering is some background around our use case, changes which have happened in last few years on technology side, and the way they have impacted on the e-commerce, how e-commerce has evolved because of all of these changes. We will talk about an example and we'll understand how we implemented event-driven architecture with that example. I will also talk about a journey towards event-driven architecture. And finally, I will wrap up with summarizing key takeaways from this session. So when I say online marketplace, first thing which comes to mind is websites or mobile applications, right? This website which you can use from your desktop or laptop or any other device like tab, even from the mobile handsets. And then you have got mobile phones from which you can use applications, Android or iOS or whatever it is, right? And customers like you or me or consumers can place order. In B2B, it will be largely customers. In B2B, we will also have employees from the companies who will be contacting to customers, maybe by face-to-face visit or via telephone. So we call them as telesales agent. So they will also have some applications to get the orders from the customers. So there are multiple touch points where customers can place orders to the service providers or to the product providers. So this is what e-commerce is all about. Now, as part of digital transformation, we are building this multiple touch points so that we can connect with our customers wherever they are. One may argue why so many touch points, but an idea is you tap into your customers wherever they are, whenever customers want to connect with you, place an order, you just want to be always available. You want to make sure that you give them omnichannel experience, consistent experience across multiple touch points. However, from IT perspective, when you see this, as your number of touch point increase, number of IT systems increase, and then integration complexity increase. So how do you ensure that you do integration between this application seamlessly so you can give them omni-channel experience? That is where event-driven architecture comes for our help. So everybody wants to keep integration simple, flexible, and agile. And given we want to give omni-channel experience, we want to ensure that if a customer has placed or performed a transaction from one channel, that transaction is also getting replicated or is reflecting on all other channels as well. So integration has to be real time. Data processing has to be real time. We also want to clearly establish single source of truth so that there are no data consistency issues, data reliability issues. Now, all of this can be achieved with event-driven architecture in seamless manner. And before I talk about how EDA or event-driven architecture helped us in e-commerce, I want to take a step back and talk about the technology changes which have happened in the last couple of years. And because of this, event-driven architecture makes more sense. It has become more relevant than ever for a company like us in CPG industry. In fact, I would say for all industries. Let me just talk about the advances which have happened in the technology space in the last couple of years. And I'm talking about a couple of them only. So first is products or applications are no more monolith. We have got microservices concept. All new age applications claim that they are microservice driven architecture. Gone are the days when it used to take ages to build a product, which will have a lot of functionalities. But now, because of microservices coming into picture, you got very, very small applications focused on particular functionality. And because of this, there is a surge of specialized app. We call them a hyper specialized app. They will perform only one task at a time. For example, in e-commerce, if you search a product on your website or mobile, how do you display your search result? How do you manipulate them? Let's say you have got applications to do that particular task only. And these applications are very easy to subscribe because they perform only this functionality. So from cost perspective, they are quite small. Second big change which has happened is around hosting. These applications are hosted on cloud. So you don't need to worry about infrastructure. Earlier, when applications were on-prem in your data centers, then arranging infrastructure itself will be a project. And you will have to think about scale, size, all of those things. Because if you start small and then you have to upgrade your infra, that itself will be another project and will take lot of time. Right? Will go into quarters or months. Since you are having cloud hosted application, you can get to this application, you can subscribe them in just couple of hours or couple of days. And these are easy to scale as well. You start small, and as you grow, you can scale them on click off. Then because of all of this, what has happened is solution which you build will have a lot of applications, more applications than ever. And I will tell you how e-commerce has shaped there. But there is a need now that this application needs to be integrated. So the need of integration itself is increasing. All these applications also claim that they are offering their functionalities using APIs. So on-demand data, call their APIs and get the functionality done. So this changes has led to increased complexity on integration, and that is where event-driven architectures are making much more sense than ever. If I talk about where it has led to on the innovation front, so experiment has become cheaper and faster. You don't need to think about a big investment, a lot of approvals, all of those things. Try something quickly. If it makes sense, fine. If it doesn't make sense, just fail fast. So this is what is happening. Now, if I look at e-commerce a couple of years back, and I call this as a basic e-commerce. So earlier, there will be very few applications. Typical e-commerce ecosystem will have maybe 4, 5, 6 components. You will have a portal where your customers or consumers will log in. You will have a content management system, a CMS, where you will store your product images plus other content which you will be showing to your customers. If customer places an order, you send it to ERP for confirmation and further processing. You might send it to your logistic partners for fulfillment. And at the end of the day, you will do some analytics, so you will have some analytics application. And using this, you could offer a basic e-commerce solution to your customers or consumers who will access this capability, access this portal over internet. But now it has gone into double digit, probably it has become 3x, maybe more. And you can see that for every capability, you have got hyper specialized application coming in. As these applications are increasing, so is the need of integration between these applications. And let's understand how we are doing this integration now. I will talk about a very basic integration first, and then from there we go to a complex scenario. Now, when I say integration, the simplest form could be you have got one source, you have got one target, which will exchange some data or some information, let's say, right? You will have two options available. Typically, both these applications can use traditional methods, the file or databases or those kind of things, or they will say that they've got APIs exposed and each other can call their APIs. So target can pull the data from source. The way target will call the APIs of source. It will schedule some jobs at defined frequency and pull this information. And this integration will be API led. And similarly, source can also push the data. It will push the data by calling the APIs of the target, and data will be sent in real time. Now, the difference of these two approaches, in case of pull-based approach, you are scheduling your jobs. So you are getting data on demand, but it may not be at real time. As you increase the frequency, you run in a risk of doing some blank polls or blank calls, let's say, and it will have negative performance impact on both target as well as on the source. And if you do not call your APIs very frequently, if you schedule them, let's say at 1 hour or 2 hour, then you are not getting the advantage of real-time data transfer. So this approach might not work effectively in case of e-commerce or wherever you're looking for the omnichannel experience. When it comes to source, of course knows when an event has occurred or when a change has occurred or when a transaction has occurred. So whenever such a transaction happens, it will decide to send the data to the target system, it will call their API and can send the data. So this could be more effective. Now, if we talk about the modern e-commerce system, which has got multiple applications, then source, one of the option could be source will send data for each of these applications. So if there are 10 applications which are interested in data, source will have to send data 10 times. Or if target is calling the APIs on the source and pulling the data, so 10 applications will be calling this APIs 10 times, let's say, if they are calling every 1 hour. And this will not be good design from performance perspective. Now, how an event broker or event-driven architecture can help in this situation. So if I go to my architecture, modern e-commerce with an event broker or event-driven architecture, this is how it looks like. You have all your applications of the ecosystem connected to event broker. And some of this could talk to event broker directly. We call them as event native application. Some of them which are not capable, maybe they are legacy applications or they do not work on events. They can connect via some middleware, some broker. I have just indicated them on this slide using, let's say, API broker. But what happens? Source will publish data, let's say once on this event broker. And from there, target can receive the data whenever they want, at whatever frequency they want, whatever speed they want. And it simplifies overall architecture. Given we are using event-driven on the source side, we are using APIs on the target side. So you get best of both. You get the power of both. And this really gives you an agile, flexible design. You can add applications on the fly to this ecosystem. You can remove applications on the fly from this ecosystem without impacting existing landscape or existing applications. Next, let me talk about an example using orders, how event-driven architecture is working for us. So let's say you have got a front-end portal, let's say Magento, and an order is placed there, an order event occurs there. And Magento publishes this order. Magento sends this order to event broker. So Solace in this case, we have used Solace. When it publishes message to event broker, there's a topic which is attached to it. When I say topic, topic is like an address of a courier or parcel. Using topic, you can uniquely identify your message. Topic typically will have multiple strings attached to it. It is in fact a science there. We call it as a topic taxonomy. So you have to be careful when you define the topic taxonomy. In this example, you can see here is the topic which we're using for the orders. So this order is, let's say, coming from the marketplace. So first string says that. Second is it is about order process. So we just use OMS. Third, in our case, is a abbreviation for country. VN in this case is Vietnam. Then it is a credit order. So we're calling it as a credit. It is coming from Android device. So it is Android. Here is order number 1, 2, 3, 4. The date when it was generated. It was a create order. It could be modify order or something like that. So this is the total topic or unique topic for this particular message. If there's another order, maybe instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, you might see 1, 2, 3, 5. So something will change. If it is a cash order, you will see a change here. If it belongs to some other country, you will see something else here. So we publish, or rather Magento publishes this order on the Solace layer. Next, what Solace will do. So this message or this order has to be given to multiple downstream applications which are interested to receive the order. But each of these applications has got their own criteria. So let's say in this example, there are these 5 applications which are interested in the order information. First is ERP, who says that I'm interested in all the orders which are getting generated on the marketplace. So the criteria which it will mention is marketplace/OMS, and this greater than sign actually is like wildcard. It says, give me all the orders. There's a marketing tool, which is a local tool, and it says that I want all the transaction, not only order, but even other transactions, for example, customer onboarding, right? Some customer registration. There could be many more processes. So this application needs all the transactions, but only of Vietnam. So it says that marketplace star, which is basically all business processes, but only for Vietnam. And greater than, which means everything. Similarly, there is, let's say, loyalty, which says that I am interested only in the orders information, that too only of Vietnam. So you can, or rather, this application indicates its preference like this. So all of these examples are coming based on this topic taxonomy. And event broker, so let's then decide the order which has been published. It should be given to which all application depending upon the criteria which these applications have specified. So this is how we implemented event-driven architecture. we publish the message only once, and from event broker, it is distributed many times as per the criteria specified by the target application, and target application can receive this message or even pick these messages based on the frequency which they are comfortable with. How do we measure the effectiveness? Now, one term which we use is event reuse index. So in the example which I was explaining earlier, we had published a Magento, the event was orders, and there were 5 subscribers to it. So I can say that my order events is getting reused 5 times. And if I take it to org level, and if I to compute overall reuse index, then I can say that total number of times my various events are subscribed by all the subscribers and divided by total number of events. So in this case, if you got only one event, 5 subscriber, your event reuse index is 5. But let's say there's another event, say invoices, and there are say 3 subscriber to this. So total number of events are 2. Total number of subscriber are 5 plus 3, 8. 8 divided by 2 will give you a reuse index of 4. And that says you how effectively you are able to reuse your event. Now, higher the number, better it is for the organization. So this is how we measure the reuse of the data which we are publishing on the Solace layer. And it effectively means that you have published data only once and this has been subscribed so many times. So from performance perspective also, it is saving you your resources. One thing which I want to call out about is the protocol which we use. Now, when you publish the data from Magento to Solace, let's say, you can have various protocols. It could be REST-based, it could be MQTT-based, there will be many more protocols. Mostly, all of us use API-based integration, so we use REST. In our case, we tried even MQTT. And what we observed was that MQTT was 10 times faster compared to REST. So when I say 10 times faster, what I mean is when data gets transferred from, let's say, one end to another end, from Magento to Solace. And when you talk about a responsive customer experience where customer clicks on something and he waits for the next screen or let's say action outcome, then you do not want customer to wait for a longer duration, right? You want to show him result immediately as fast as possible. That is where MQTT can make a big difference. Of course, a lot of applications may not support MQTT. IoT devices use it, but then there are applications which support MQTT, and I would encourage that you should try MQTT where it is possible. Go for it. And especially cases where you have got small size messages but high volume of data, you should definitely try MQTT. Moving on, this was my original integration architecture. Event broker and middleware, all applications are connected. Some of them are consuming data directly. Some of them are consuming data via middlewares. Topic taxonomy, which is an important one. So you need to carefully decide this so that you can offer flexibility to publish the data as well as to subscribe the data. And subscriber will get only what they are interested in. Moving on, you can have multiple event brokers as well. So let's say your applications are spread across the globe or spread across multiple clouds or data center. You could employ a different strategy. You may say that I will have one event broker in every country or every region, or I will have one event broker instance in every cloud. In this example, I have shown one event broker, let's say for GCP, another one for Azure, one more for AWS. And you can connect this event broker. And whenever you want to replicate data from one cloud to another, it's better that you go via event breaker. So let's say it is an event which has been published on GCP. From there, it is required on, let's say, these 3 applications which are hosted in Azure. You have an option that all 3 can connect to the same event broker and take the data from there, but you might have data egress cost 3 times. Instead, you can give data once to this event broker, and then from there, it can locally distribute it 3 times. This way, you can save your data egress cost as well. However, more than data cost, this concept is more about creating event mesh. So when you have got multiple event brokers, maybe because of countries, because of cloud, or because of different functions, you can connect them, and your data can move freely from one place to another. And using the topic taxonomy, you can just ensure that everybody gets what they are interested in. And at the same time, you can give this data in real time, or you can offer it in batch, depending upon the frequency or flexibility which your downstream applications or receiving applications need. I will go to the next slide and I will talk about how our journey has been towards EDA. So this is a fairly new concept. And first challenge for us was to convince ourselves that yes, it makes sense, there's a value in it. So we understood this concept and then we tried our hands on. A couple of minutes back, I was saying that the cost of innovation has reduced. So that was an advantage for us. We quickly tried a use case on the Solace and we saw whether it makes sense or not. We saw value in it. We were convinced, and then we started creating awareness in the organization. We started doing evangelization in the organization so that we can identify a pilot use case. But trust me, this takes time because event-driven architecture is a new concept. People do not get convinced easily. They will have their own apprehension. So it may take time before you identify a sponsor or a pilot use case, let's say. But once you identify that, ensure that you implement it and demonstrate the benefits. Once you do that, I'm sure then you will identify more use cases, you will scale up. And this is what we did as well. This 4 steps, this is what we had followed. So we created awareness. We identified our first use case. These 2 steps, of course, took quite some time. But after we implemented it, then we started getting more use cases. And this step number 4 is what we do today as well. We look for more use cases and we start and we scale more and more. But once you establish the event-driven architecture, then it becomes easy because you can always offer the data from your existing event broker, and the time to market itself also reduce. So it is actually a cultural change. It's just not a technology change where you can bring an event broker and then implement it. It's actually cultural change, and you need to embed your design thinking. You need to embed the event-driven architecture thinking in your design thinking, and that will take time. Lastly, I just want to summarize with key takeaways. So first, our end-to-end solutions are becoming integration heavy as number of applications involved are increasing. Second, event-driven architecture can reduce integration complexity. It can offer you real-time integration. Third, event-driven architecture with API-led approach is the best, and you get best of both. So you should go for both of them, right? Next is topic taxonomy, very, very critical to the success of event-driven architecture implementation. So carefully think about it and then implement it because you do not want to frequently change your topic taxonomy. And last, start your journey, event-driven architecture journey, by using 1 or 2 use case, and then from there you can scale up. So that's all for today. I would stop here, and Mark, I will hand it over back to you, and happy to answer if there are any questions. Thank you.
Sushil, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. That was absolutely fascinating. And we really appreciate your time telling the story of what's been going on, of course, within your organization. For everybody watching, this is your opportunity to ask any question that comes to mind. Pop it into the Q&A section and we'll get to as many as we can in the time we've got available. Sushil, before we get to the audience's questions, right towards the end of the presentation, you talked about how this was in many ways a cultural shift. I'd love to get a bit more information from you on how you made that happen internally. In other words, how did you get people to come along on this journey? What was the way that you communicated all of the upside of this approach? Can you give us any tips on that?
First of all, integration itself is difficult. A lot of people do not understand because it's very technical. So speaking to people, explaining them integration is difficult. And then when you say about event-driven architecture or API, it becomes further complicated. So simple approach, which I will say, pick up a use case and using that, explain them how it is working today, what it means from business perspective, let's say. And if you implement it with event-driven architecture, what change will it bring? Especially if you have to onboard new applications, we have to do any migration, transitions and all, you can cover even with that cases. So you basically need to address some pain points. And when you tell a story that way, people will get convinced that, yes, it makes sense to try event-driven architecture.
Right. The more that we can become problem solvers, right, the easier the journey is. And out of interest, which use case, if you can share, what use case did you go with first?
So ours was basically, we all talk about the data lake. And ours was actually a transport related case. So we use a lot of seabound traffic or seabound good movements. Now, one problem which happens that you cannot track where your ship is. We of course do track our vehicles, but you can't track where is your ship in the ocean. You do not know how long it will take to get clearance on the customs. And if you are then planning your logistic on the other side of the customs on the road, it becomes tricky. So what we started doing, that is where we tried this use case, was this was a pain point which we understood. So we started collecting, let's say, real-time location data of the ship. When I say real-time, it was still like 30 minutes or 1 hour kind of a thing. Because from ocean perspective, in 30 minutes, it doesn't make a lot of difference. And then we had got a couple of other sources like custom traffic and inbound and other things. We brought all of this information using event-driven architecture into a data lake. And using that, we generated some insight, which actually provided us real-time visibility and then helped us plan our logistics better.
I love it. Combination of technology and the high seas. Sorry, you were going to add something?
Yeah, so I was saying that this was the first case. And when you have to then evangelize further, so you go with this use case, you say that this is what the pain point was, this is how we solved it, and that is where then a story becomes appealing. And then other people are willing to partner with you to try this use case.
It's true. You show a small win and everyone gets interested. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. I'm looking at my screen now, the questions from our audience coming in. So here we go. Question 1, are you using PBC, package business capabilities, or pseudo PBCs to wrap microservices in reusable business functionalities?
Oh, yes. So we have got mix of both. We have got both basically. So PBCs are also used or called as applications. I was talking about this hyper specialized applications. You can call them as PBCs as well. So yes, we did use them, and we did have some in-house development pseudo PBCs. So we had combination of both.
Nice, thank you for that. Antonius asks, what's the difference, I think, with traditional API gateway or middleware?
Okay, so I would say middleware is quite broad. It will offer a lot of functionalities or features to do the integration, various methods like SOAP, file, database, a lot of them. But when you talk about traditional API gateway, it will have limited features to support just the API related integration.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. And again, reminder to our audience, this is a great opportunity to ask Sushil questions linked really to his experience and the story so far. And so we go to our next question. And let me just see if I'm getting the order right. Yes, next one is Rajiv. And Rajiv says, what would you recommend using thick events or thin events, event carried state transfer versus event notifications? How feasible is it to use thick event from ERP systems like SAP?
So there are different ways in which this event-driven architecture can be implemented. Few organizations already say one of the pattern could be you just notify events, and then your event subscriber will call the API and pull the data. So it becomes like two-step process or two-step solution. So two interfaces gets built. But I prefer one step wherein the source or publisher or event notifier is sending event as well as the data together, bundled together. And I would prefer that. And I think that is what is being referred as a thick event. Coming to the second part of the question, which you asked, that how feasible is to use with SAP. So now with the latest version of SAP is supporting event-driven architecture as well. It is still in initial stages, so some way to go there. But SAP has started supporting events there natively.
That's great. Thank you. And actually, just out of interest on this, event-driven architecture journey that you're on, you're obviously already so well established, but how far do you feel that it is a constant learning curve? You're able to make changes that keep improving the outcomes. How far is it a work in progress versus a job done?
So I would say it is like a maturity. I will definitely not say that we have become mature. So the MQTT example, which I was saying, when we started on day one, our integration was not, in some cases, it was not direct, let's say between application and event broker. So we are using other middlewares. We started working with some product vendors and evaluate, and we work with them to figure out if applications can become event native. So this is the first thing. And some of them did support us for that. So Magento example itself, which I was saying, initially we started with a middleware, then we moved it to a direct one. It was again REST based. Then we saw that can we improve it further. So we changed the protocol, we went into MQTT. So it's a constant learning. A lot of applications do not support event-driven architecture. A lot of applications do not support various protocol, and you keep on adding or removing applications. So I think it's continuous journey. We cannot say that, yes, we are reached to the final maturity. It is a new concept.
Absolutely. All right, great. Next question comes from Ankit. And Ankit says, could you please talk about the online marketplace part and how you guys have used EDA for B2B integrations?
So typically all we are saying that you publish the data out to the event broker, and from event broker, then you can do whatever you want. So A to A, B to B, it doesn't matter. Typically event brokers are called as integrator of integrators. So technically speaking, you can actually connect your middleware. Let's say you are already using EDI based integration, just an example. So you can consume your messages from event broker and then pass it to your EDI broker, let's say, and from there you can continue your transformation. So I think that differentiation gets lost there. We need not be worried about whether it is B2B or A to A. Just publish it and then anybody can consume it.
Very nice, thank you. And connected to that answer, and forgive, there's some overlap, but Will asks, did you consider using Apache Kafka as your broker, or do you also use Kafka in addition to Solus? Maybe Kafka for analytics, he says, Solus is broker for operational use cases.
So we had only one tool for event broker. It was Solaz. Now, my point of view there is that you should not go for multiple tools to build same capability. One, it increases your TCO. Second is it will, of course, mean having those resources, those skill set to support. And if you have to land a change, it increases your time to market or to land a change. So I would say that assess based on your requirement, which tools suits best to meet that particular capability. In this case, let's say if you have to enable event-driven architecture, which event broker makes more sense. Kafka, Apache, or other tools, they have got their own specialties. Solaz has got its own. When you talk about event-driven architecture, one point which I again want to stress is topic taxonomy, right? So you want to give only what is required by your downstream application. So let's say subscriber. Now, some applications might not offer you very good topic taxonomy support, and then it becomes difficult where you end up giving everything to everyone, and you ask them that you filter out and take whatever you want. This actually suboptimal usage of resources. So I would rather say you should have flexibility where you can provide in detail what you are publishing, and then on the subscription side, you get what you are interested in. Nothing more, nothing less.
Very good. And very pertinent to Sajad's question, which again, you've touched on, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to go a bit deeper if you'd liked. And Sajad says, you've talked about topic taxonomy, there we were, and naming convention. Do you have any best practices, any additional best practices for queue names on the consumer side, especially queues that are mapped to topics?
So I would say that you should definitely define some guidelines. For us, it was usually combination of country plus application, just to ensure that we never end up in a situation where we are confused with what does this queue do. Similarly, you could also add some identifier, for instance, whether it is production, UAT, SIT, something like that. But it is best if you come up with some guidelines and stick to it when you implement EDA.
Very nice, thank you. Our next question comes from Rajiv. And I like this question because we touched earlier on the challenge of getting everybody internally on board, finding a good use case, getting those little wins and growing from there. But Rajiv asks, did you have to convince your external suppliers and vendors to integrate with you in the form of events? And if so, any tips? How did you do it?
So yes, in fact, it becomes even difficult because in organization, you will have a lot of opportunities where you can connect to your partners, stakeholders and all. But when it comes to external vendors, external partners, so you get that opportunity only when you are executing a project. So it was always a challenge. First thing which will start and we'll hear that what is event-driven architecture, what is event broker, what is Solaz, those kind of questions. So we'll have to literally tell them that this is what it is, how it will benefit. Second thing is then will it work for us or not? There will be low confidence and we'll have to do some POC to establish the connection. And then we have got, of course, flexibility where they can connect and pull the data, or let's say Solaz can push. So all these possible options. So yes, we'll have to do this exercise of convincing our partners as well to go through this. And in fact, you will have to handle them as well in case they end up with some issues, because you
Yeah.
want this to be successful. So sometimes you need to get on to their side and maybe get into coding or light troubleshooting and all of those things just to ensure that, yes, it
Well,
works.
and I wanted to ask you about that because for this to work on both sides, if you have the knowledge, if you're ready to solve problems, I guess in many ways you end up being a consultant for those partners.
Yes, yes,
All
definitely.
right, good to know. Good to know. Back to the naming topic. Suresh says, looks like the topic naming was used for your message routing and filtering. Do you? Oh, hold on, it just moved as I was reading it. There. Do you recommend this topic name based routing instead of having a single topic that has metadata in message header, excuse me, to distribute?
So yes, message header approach can also be used, but I would prefer if you can make it in the topic taxonomy directly. Of course, your topic taxonomy can have both static as well as dynamic content, so it serves a purpose. But only if you are coming across some challenge, then go for message headers. Otherwise, keeping it simple is better.
Girish asks a question that will take you back to the beginning of the story in many ways. And the question is, what other approaches other than EDA did you consider at the outset? And can you let us know how that decision came about?
So typically first thing which comes, and I'm talking about the modern architecture, since all our applications mostly are, or rather all of them are hosted on cloud. So API-led approach was making sense. But as I was saying earlier, if I got one publisher and if I got 10 subscriber for a particular data, I will end up calling it same API 10 times. So that will be suboptimal usage of the resources. Second thing is that will not be real, true, that will not be true real-time integration as well. So another challenge is that you will get data on demand, but need not be in real time. And that is where then we looked at how to improvise that. Since it was an application or rather a solution where users are interacting with you and you want to provide real-time insights and all of those kind of things. So we went for event-driven architecture. Other traditional operation options could also be there, let's say file-based integration and all, but then these are things of past. One will just straight away reject them. Another pattern could be some native integrations. When I say native integration, it's like two applications can talk to each other directly. Some plugins are available. That is also an option. And if you feel that makes sense, you can consider them in some cases. But then mostly you will end up publishing data multiple times. So you will prefer going via event broker there.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. I see two final questions currently anyway on our question list. So this one comes from Carlos. Event-driven is complex for troubleshooting. The question is, how do you trace end to end? And Carlos admits this might be similar to what you've discussed, but would like a bit more on that.
So I would say actually it is a myth that event-driven architecture is complex for troubleshooting. First of all, what you are doing in at least Solaris layer, event broker layer, I would say, is all configuration. Nothing more. There is absolutely no coding, zero coding. So when you have to troubleshoot, you will just see whether you got the data or not, or in which queue it went, all of those things. So this is within event broker layer. But if you say that I have got an issue that publisher is trying to publish and it is not getting published, you will look at the publisher's log. When it comes to the subscriber side, subscriber says that, yes, I have received it. I have picked it up, but it's going into error, or I'm not able to locate it. Then, of course, you look at the logs on the subscriber side. So I will not say that it is actually complicated. It can be managed pretty well. And since there is no code, it's okay.
Great, thank you. Next, the question is asked by Gabriel. And Gabriel says MQTT is faster than REST, R-E-S-T. When you say REST, do you mean Solace REST APIs or invocations to the broker through gateways?
No. I'm not referring to any tool. I'm referring to the protocol. So yeah. MQTT is a protocol. REST is another protocol. Any application can have it. There's no proprietary Solace REST or let's say Solace MQTT. Nothing such.
Thank you for that. Our next question, how was your experience with setting up all the event broker resources? And we've discussed a few of them already, of course, queues, ACLs, etc. in Solace. Do you use SEMP API or just through the UI? And do you have a big script to run with SEMP REST calls to set up all the resources?
So when we started, we of course took help from the Solas. It was new for us.
Yeah.
One good thing is that Solas also has published a lot of guides, I would say, self-help guides, which will help you. How do you configure? How do you set up? If you are still facing some issues, you can of course reach out to them and they will help there. So we did not have any issue there. Talking about SEMP APIs, so we definitely did not use it. We were happy with the UI based configuration, let's say. We of course did look at SEMP offerings, but there was immediately no ask or no need, so we did not pursue it further.
Very nice. You know, we've reached the end of our audience questions, but I have a final question for you, which is what's next on your journey when you look ahead to the months as we head towards the summer season here in the Northern Hemisphere? What are the plans?
So for me, the true event-driven or real-time integration would be if there's a user who is in middle of the journey on your platform, let's say it's looking at some promotions, he's building his cart or something like that. Can you capture some events there? Can you intervene during that journey and help him? So let's say if he's looking at some product and you may say that, hey, there is a promotion going on, you might want to check, or he performs a transaction and you might want to say him that, hey, I can offer you some credit, that kind of thing, right? So during the journey, if you can intervene, so you catch those events and you respond to that. I hope we can do that. So we are not yet there, but this is something which I think I would love to do.
Great plans ahead. Sushil, thank you for the time, your insight, and your experience. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that is all the time we've got for today. Once again, of course, a thanks to our amazing presenter, Sushil Sarda. Wonderful presentation, lots of usable information there. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. As promised earlier, I'd like to highlight a few upcoming events that you won't want to miss. Now, the first is a webcast by AWS and Solace on the topic of EDA across the hybrid cloud. That event will take place on March the 1st, and you can visit solace.com/events to register. We are also very pleased to announce the date for our third annual EDA Summit. It's May the 10th. Just check out the EDA Summit website for speaking and registration information at edasummit.com. All right. Thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.